The 1960s were a period of experimentation in the American auto industry, with automakers looking to push boundaries with new designs, engineering, and marketing approaches. While the decade produced some of the most iconic cars ever made, it also spawned plenty of models that missed the mark. Some of them, infamous here, are 11 of the worst and dumbest American cars of the 1960s that will surprise you. Dear viewer, don't forget to subscribe to the channel. Thanks for your support. The 1969 AMC Ambassador SST. The 1969 AMC Ambassador SST was introduced as a luxury vehicle aimed at competing with more established premium brands, but it ultimately became a case study in misguided design and poor market positioning. This massive sedan stretched over 17 feet long and weighed nearly 4,000 pounds, making it unwieldy on the road and difficult to maneuver in urban environments. Despite its luxury aspirations, the Ambassador SST was plagued by subpar build quality with cheap plastic interior components, misaligned panels, and inconsistent fit and finish throughout. The car's styling was polarizing at best, with a bulbous front end, awkward proportions, and excessive chrome trim that made it look outdated even when new. Under the hood, the Ambassador SST came with a standard 232 cubic inch inline-six engine, producing a mere 145 horsepower, woefully inadequate for moving such a heavy vehicle. Even the optional 390 cubic inch V8 struggled to provide decent acceleration due to the car's excessive weight. AMC's attempt to compete with larger manufacturers resulted in a vehicle that excelled in neither luxury nor performance, leaving it in an awkward middle ground that appealed to few buyers. While it did offer a comfortable ride and spacious interior, these qualities weren't enough to overcome its significant shortcomings, and the Ambassador SST became yet another forgettable entry in AMC's troubled history. The 1961 DeSoto Adventurer. The 1961 DeSoto Adventurer represented the final gasp of a dying brand, as Chrysler discontinued the DeSoto nameplate just a month after this model was introduced. The 1961 Adventurer was rushed into production with minimal development and quality control, resulting in numerous mechanical and design issues. The styling was particularly problematic, featuring an awkward blend of outdated 1950s elements with hastily applied contemporary touches, creating a disjointed appearance that pleased nobody. Its massive front grille resembled an awkward grimace, while the rear styling featured peculiar taillight designs that seemed like an afterthought. Under the hood, the Adventurer came with a 383 cubic inch V8 that was reliable but unrefined, suffering from poor fuel economy even by 1960s standards. The interior was equally disappointing, with cheap materials, uncomfortable seating, and a dashboard layout that prioritized style over function. Build quality was notoriously inconsistent, as Chrysler had already decided to kill the brand and devoted minimal resources to quality control. Electrical problems were common, with issues ranging from non-functioning gauges to complete electrical system failures. The rushed development meant that proper testing was neglected, leaving owners to discover problems on their own. Despite being marketed as a premium vehicle, the Adventurer lacked the refinement and features found in comparably priced competitors. Today, the 1961 DeSoto Adventurer stands as a sad epilogue to what was once a respected American car brand, remembered more for its timing as DeSoto's last model than for any merit of its own. The 1967 Cadillac Eldorado. The 1967 Cadillac Eldorado was intended to be a bold statement in personal luxury, but ended up exemplifying everything wrong with American automotive excess. This massive coupe stretched over 18 feet long while offering seating for just 6 passengers, creating an absurdly inefficient use of space. Its front-wheel drive layout was innovative for the time, but the execution was deeply flawed, resulting in terrible handling characteristics with significant understeer and a disconnected driving feel. The Eldorado's weight of nearly 5,000 pounds severely compromised its performance despite its powerful 429 cubic inch V8 engine. Fuel economy was abysmal even by 1960 standards, with drivers reporting single-digit miles per gallon in city driving. The styling, while distinctive, featured excessive chrome trim and questionable proportions, with a massively long hood and truncated rear overhang that made the car look unbalanced. Inside, the Eldorado featured luxurious materials but poor ergonomics, with controls scattered illogically across the dashboard and a seating position that many drivers found uncomfortable on longer journeys. Reliability was another significant issue, with frequent problems affecting the complex front-wheel drive system and numerous electrical gremlins that plagued owners. The air suspension system, while providing a smooth ride when functioning properly, was prone to failure, often leaving cars sagging on one side. Maintenance costs were exorbitant, with specialized parts and complex systems requiring frequent attention from dealerships. While the Eldorado offered an undeniably smooth and quiet ride when everything worked properly, its numerous flaws and impractical design made it one of Cadillac's most questionable offerings of the decade. The 1960 Chevrolet Corvair. The 1960 Chevrolet Corvair stands as one of the most notorious American cars ever produced, gaining infamy after Ralph Nader's book, Unsafe at Any Speed, highlighted its dangerous handling characteristics. The Corvair's unique rear-engine design, while innovative, created severe handling issues due to the engine's weight being concentrated over the rear axle. This weight distribution led to a tendency for the rear end to swing out during cornering, potentially causing the car to spin out of control. The original suspension design lacked a front anti-roll bar and featured a swing axle rear suspension that could cause dangerous tuck-under during hard cornering, lifting the inside rear wheel off the ground and further destabilizing the vehicle. Beyond its safety issues, the Corvair suffered from frequent oil leaks due to poorly designed engine seals, often leading to oil being deposited on hot engine components and creating a fire hazard. The air-cooled flat-six engine was prone to overheating, particularly in hot weather or during extended highway driving. Inside, the car featured a Spartan interior with uncomfortable seating and minimal amenities, even on higher trim models. The heating system drew air through the engine compartment, occasionally allowing noxious fumes into the cabin. While Chevrolet addressed many of these issues in later model years, the first-generation Corvair's reputation was irreparably damaged. Despite its innovative concept and unique styling, the 1960 Corvair represents a case study in the dangers of rushing an unproven design to market without adequate testing and refinement, a mistake that cost General Motors dearly in both financial terms and public perception. The 1963 Chrysler Turbine. The 1963 Chrysler Turbine car was perhaps the most ambitious automotive experiment of the decade, featuring a jet turbine engine instead of a conventional piston engine. While technically impressive, this experiment proved to be deeply flawed in practical application. The turbine engine suffered from severe throttle lag, taking several seconds to respond to driver inputs, which made everyday driving unpredictable and potentially dangerous. The engine's 22,000 RPM operating speed produced a distinctive high-pitched whine that many drivers found unbearable, especially during long trips. Fuel consumption was astronomical, with the turbine capable of burning through a tank of fuel in just 150-200 miles of normal driving. More bizarrely, the engine could theoretically run on almost any combustible liquid, including tequila or perfume, but this flexibility did little to offset its thirst. The turbine's operating temperature was extremely high, with exhaust gases hot enough to melt asphalt and ignite dry vegetation, creating safety hazards whenever the car was parked. The complex engineering required specialized maintenance that few mechanics could provide, making ownership a logistical nightmare. Production costs were prohibitively expensive, which is why only 55 were ever built, with most later destroyed by Chrysler. While the turbine car's bronze styling was distinctive and the interior was luxuriously appointed, these qualities couldn't overcome its fundamental impracticality. The car's throttle response was so unpredictable that parallel parking became an adventure, with drivers never quite sure when the power would surge. While it represents an intriguing technological dead end, end, the Chrysler turbine car remains one of the most impractical production vehicles ever created. The 1960 Edsel Ranger. The 1960 Edsel Ranger represents one of the most spectacular marketing failures in automotive history. Although Edsel had already earned a reputation for disappointment in the late 1950s, the 1960 model year was particularly disastrous, leading to the brand's demise. The Ranger's styling was a confused mess, hastily redesigned to look more like a Ford after the distinctive but polarizing vertical grille of earlier models had been rejected by consumers. This resulted in a car that lacked any meaningful identity, appearing as little more than a slightly modified Ford Fairlane with different badges. Inside, the Ranger featured cheap materials and poor assembly quality, with owners reporting everything from loose trim pieces to electrical failures within weeks of purchase. The dashboard design prioritized style over function, with hard-to-read gauges and controls placed illogically. Under the hood, the Ranger came with underpowered engines for its size and weight, with the base 292 cubic inch V8 producing a meager 185 horsepower. Performance was sluggish at best, with 0-60 mph times around 13 seconds, slow even by 1960 standards. Reliability was another major issue, with problems ranging from transmission failures to chronic overheating. Ford's quality control for Edsel models was notoriously lax, as the company had already internally decided to discontinue the brand. Dealer support was minimal, as many Ford dealerships were reluctant to service Edsels, knowing parts would soon become difficult to obtain. While the Ranger did offer a relatively smooth ride and decent trunk space, these minor virtues couldn't overcome its fundamental flaws. The 1960 Edsel Ranger serves as a textbook example of a car produced without conviction or purpose, a half-hearted final attempt to salvage a brand that was already considered toxic by consumers. The 1966 Oldsmobile Toronado. The 1966 Oldsmobile Toronado was hailed as revolutionary for introducing front-wheel drive to the American luxury car market, but beneath its innovative drivetrain lurked a deeply flawed vehicle. At nearly 19 feet long and weighing over 4,800 pounds, the Toronado was absurdly large and heavy for a two-door coupe, creating handling challenges that its front-wheel drive system struggled to overcome. The massive 425 cubic inch V8 engine produced 385 horsepower, but this power came at the cost of atrocious fuel economy, with real-world consumption often dipping below 10 miles per gallon. The innovative drivetrain was plagued with reliability issues in early production, with owners reporting premature transmission failures and constant drivetrain vibrations that proved difficult to eliminate. The Toronado's styling, while distinctive, featured poor visibility due to its small windows and massive C-pillars, creating dangerous blind spots that made lane changes a nerve-wracking experience. Inside, the car offered a spacious but poorly organized interior with a dashboard that prioritized style over functionality and seats that lacked proper lateral support. Despite its size, rear passenger space was compromised by the sloping roofline, making the back seat uncomfortable for adults on longer journeys. The trunk, while reasonably sized, was oddly shaped due to the intrusion of mechanical components, limiting its practical utility. Braking performance was particularly concerning, with the drum brakes struggling to safely stop such a heavy vehicle from highway speeds, leading to frequent brake fade during spirited driving. While the Toronado deserves recognition for introducing front-wheel drive to the American luxury market, its execution left much to be desired, making it more of a flawed experiment than a successful luxury coupe. The 1969 Lincoln Mark III. The 1969 Lincoln Mark III was the epitome of American automotive excess, a personal luxury coupe that prioritized ostentation over practicality or driving pleasure. Measuring over 19 feet long but offering seating for just 6 passengers, the Mark III exemplified inefficient packaging and bloated design. Its most distinctive feature was the massive front grille, designed to resemble a Rolls-Royce, but coming across as a tacky imitation rather than elegant luxury. The fake spare tire hump on the trunk lid was equally gaudy, adding unnecessary bulk to an already oversized vehicle. Under its massive hood, the Mark III featured a 460 cubic inch V8 engine that produced 365 horsepower but delivered abysmal fuel economy, often less than 10 miles per gallon in typical driving. Despite its powerful engine, the car's 4,800-pound weight resulted in sluggish acceleration and ponderous handling that made it feel like piloting a yacht on wheels. The soft suspension created excessive body roll during cornering, while the over-assisted power steering removed any sense of connection to the road. Inside, the Mark III featured luxurious materials but questionable ergonomics, with a dashboard that prioritized style over functionality and seats that lacked proper support for anything beyond straight-line cruising. Build quality was inconsistent at best, with many owners reporting persistent rattles, squeaks, and electrical gremlins. The complex vacuum-operated climate control system was notoriously unreliable, often failing completely and requiring expensive repairs. While the Mark III did offer an impressively smooth and quiet ride on perfect roads, its size made it impractical in urban environments, and its handling limitations made it unenjoyable on winding roads. As a status symbol, the Lincoln Mark III certainly made a statement, but as a car, it represented American luxury at its most excessive and least refined. The 1961 Plymouth Valiant. The 1961 Plymouth Valiant was Chrysler's entry into the compact car market, but it quickly became notorious for its bizarre styling and mechanical shortcomings. The Valiant's design has been described as one of the most polarizing of the decade, featuring unusual proportions with a long hood, short deck, and strange styling elements like fake spare tire bulge on the trunk and peculiar fins that appeared out of place on a compact car. This hodgepodge of design elements created what many considered one of the ugliest cars of the era, looking like it had been designed by committee without a coherent vision. Beyond its questionable aesthetics, the Valiant suffered from significant quality control issues, with poor panel fit, premature rust problems, and inconsistent assembly quality. The base engine was an underwhelming 170 cubic inch slant 6, producing just 101 horsepower, leading to sluggish performance even by 1960s compact car standards. Transmission options were equally disappointing, with a 3-speed manual that had vague shift action or a push-button automatic that was prone to failure. The suspension system provided a reasonable ride, but poor handling characteristics, with excessive body roll and unpredictable behavior during emergency maneuvers. Inside, the Valiant featured a bizarrely designed dashboard with an unusual instrument cluster that prioritized style over readability, along with uncomfortable seats covered in low-quality upholstery that wore out quickly. While the Valiant did offer decent fuel economy and reasonable interior space for its compact dimensions, these practical virtues were overwhelmed by its mechanical and design shortcomings. The 1961 Plymouth Valiant stands as a prime example of how American manufacturers initially struggled to compete with imported compact cars, producing vehicles that missed the mark in both design and execution. The 1964 Studebaker Wagonaire. The 1964 Studebaker Wagonaire represented a final desperate attempt at innovation from a dying company, featuring a sliding rear roof section that could convert the station wagon into a partial pickup truck. While creative in concept, the execution was deeply flawed, with the sliding roof mechanism prone to leaking in rainy weather, creating a persistent problem with water intrusion that could damage the interior and promote rust. The complex roof mechanism was also prone to jamming, sometimes leaving owners unable to close the roof during sudden rainstorms. Beyond its problematic roof, the Wagonaire suffered from outdated engineering throughout, as Studebaker lacked the resources to develop modern components. The base engine was an ancient 169.6 cubic inch six-cylinder producing just 110 horsepower, struggling to move the wagon's substantial weight with any authority. Even the optional 289 cubic inch V8 was unrefined and inefficient compared to competitors' offerings. The Wagonaire's styling was awkward, with dated lines that looked out of place in the mid-1960s market, featuring a front-end design that had changed little since 1953. Build quality was notoriously inconsistent, as Studebaker's financial troubles meant corners were cut wherever possible. Interior materials were cheap and wore poorly, while the dashboard layout was cluttered and confusing. The Wagonaire also suffered from structural issues, as the removal of significant roof structure compromised the body's rigidity, leading to squeaks, rattles, and premature wear of suspension components. The car's electrical system was particularly problematic, with frequent failures of lights, gauges, and accessories. While the Wagonaire did offer innovative versatility with its sliding roof concept, the poor execution and Studebaker's impending demise doomed it to failure. The company ceased American production entirely in December 1963, leaving Wagonaire owners with orphaned vehicles and increasingly difficult parts availability. The 1960 Chevrolet Corvair Greenbrier. The 1960 Chevrolet Corvair Greenbrier stands as perhaps the most dangerously flawed American vehicle of the decade, combining all the handling issues of the standard Corvair with the increased rollover risk of a tall van body. This peculiar vehicle featured a rear-mounted, air-cooled flat-six engine positioned beneath the floor, creating a high center of gravity that made it exceptionally prone to rolling over during emergency maneuvers. The swing-axle rear suspension design that was criticized in the Corvair car was even more dangerous in the Greenbrier, as the taller body amplified the tendency for the rear end to break loose unexpectedly. The Greenbrier's weight distribution was particularly problematic when lightly loaded, with nearly 70% of its weight concentrated over the rear axle, creating severe oversteer that could catch inexperienced drivers by surprise. The air-cooled engine was inadequate for heating the large interior space in cold weather, leaving passengers freezing in winter months, while the lack of effective insulation made the cabin noisy at all times. The base engine produced just 80 horsepower, woefully inadequate for moving the van's weight, resulting in dangerously slow acceleration when merging onto highways. The steering was vague and unresponsive, requiring constant corrections to maintain a straight line at highway speeds. Inside, the Greenbrier featured an awkward driving position with the front seats placed directly over the front axle without adequate crash protection, creating a serious safety concern in frontal collisions. The forward control design meant there was virtually no crumple zone in front of occupants. Access to the engine for maintenance was extremely difficult, requiring the removal of interior panels and contortion to reach basic components. The Greenbrier's unique layout also meant that exhaust leaks could allow carbon monoxide to enter the passenger compartment, creating a potentially lethal situation. While the Greenbrier did offer innovative space utilization with its flat floor and flexible seating, these benefits were far outweighed by its fundamental safety and performance issues. The Corvair Greenbrier represents a perfect storm of bad design choices, creating one of the most compromised vehicles ever to emerge from Detroit. These 11 cars from the 1960s showcase how even major manufacturers could produce vehicles with serious flaws, from dangerous handling characteristics to bizarre styling choices and mechanical unreliability. While the decade produced many automotive icons, these infamous models remind us that innovation without proper execution often leads to failure. Which of these automotive disasters do you find most interesting? Let us know in the comments below. Don't forget to like and subscribe for more automotive history, and we'll see you in the next video.